You are watching darkScript, IT and InfoSec tutorials.
Welcome back to darkScript, you naughty script kiddies. I'm gonna ask you for one little favor, okay? Don't skip this video, stop everything you're doing, you got nothing better to do right now. Just sit back, have some coffee, shut up. Now that I've got your attention, I'm gonna tell you a little secret, okay? This is a special episode. It's not like the others, it's not as bad, you'll see. This video is marking the beginning of a brand new series where I'll not only be promoting cybersecurity as I've been doing so far, but also embarking on a personal and exciting learning path myself. And as we progress together in this learning path, you and I hope, we are going to discover a ton of cool stuff together, a bunch of new technologies and exploits and attack vectors and security models and dodgy websites. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm just trying to convert my own learning experience into practical and theoretical tutorials that anyone can benefit from, even you. You see, I want to share this knowledge with you openly and freely. And if you end up by mistake liking the content, just please stay tuned, and if you got any feedback, remark, comment, dark humor, how about you start contributing to society, huh? How about you share my video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, unless it's a really nasty comment. Be part of this, do it, just do it. Be like the dude behind me, okay? Be curious, be open to learning new shit. Forget about your girlfriend, you don't need her anymore. You won't need her where I'm taking you anyway. Anyhow, let's start delving into the darkest realms of the cyberspace. I'm kidding, there is nothing dark there. There is nothing to see. Okay, enough joking. Okay, let's get serious now. Today I want to start with an easy and short and yet a very important concept called AAA using a protocol called TACACS+, which I will demo in a beautiful tool called Cisco Packet Tracer. This is what my pre-designed lab looks like. It's pretty simple, we'll get there. But before we get our hands dirty, I would like to cover some theory. Let's talk for a second about what are we actually diving into today. What is AAA? So AAA stands for Authentication, Authorization and Accounting. It's like a gatekeeper in network security, ensuring that only the right people can access the right resources and tracking what the hell they do with them. What is authentication? Briefly, that's the process of asking, who the hell are you? It's about verifying the identity of a user, a device, or a network entity trying to access a system or a resource. What is authorization? That's the process of asking, what are you allowed to do? What permissions do you have on this system? Authorization basically determines what resources and operations or actions the user can access after being authenticated. So what is accounting? That's the process of logging and tracking all this information so that later on no one can deny what they did. Because if I log into a system right now, I have to provide credentials. And since those credentials are unique and personal, if credentials have been provided, they were likely provided by the authentic user, and therefore the authentic user is granted certain rights. And this user is also accountable for whatever they do with these rights. Do they perform legal and legitimate actions, or do they abuse their authorization and authority? So you can think of it as a combination of multiple elements in real life. You go to the airport, let's say. Someone is checking your identity and you authenticate using your passport to show that you are who you claim to be. And then you present your flight ticket to show what your purchase authorizes you to do. What will be your seat number, in which class are you traveling, are you eligible for a meal, which airline you're traveling with, and so on and so on. And then some people will be registering and logging everything, like your personal details, your payment information, their cameras in place for security reasons. Your luggage might be tracked as well, hopefully for you. This is the accounting element of AAA. So in AAA, we ask three different questions. The first one is, are you authentic? Or do we know you? Or has anyone heard of you? The second one is, oh, okay, I know you, but what are you allowed to do here? What is your authorization? And accounting, that's the question you ask your dog when you're back after a long day at work and you realize it exterminated your shoes. What did you do? Accounting basically keeps track of the user's activities, including the duration of access, the resources they used, and any changes made during the session. Now you may be asking yourselves, how does the TACACS Plus protocol service fit into this? TACACS, or Terminal Access Controller Access Control System Plus, just bear with me, that's a protocol that helps you achieve AAA. It talks to the AAA server that decides who gets in and what they can do, and then tracks their actions within the network. So, in the first step, the client initiates a connection with a network device. In this example, the user on the laptop is attempting to log into the router via SSH or Telnet, God forbid. Step 2, the authentication request is made, so the router is receiving the login attempt and it sends an authentication request to the TACACS server. Step 3, the TACACS server verifies the user's credentials against its own database and then sends an authentication response back to the router. In step 4, if the authentication is successful, the router will send an authorization request to the TACACS server to determine the user's permissions and access controls. Step 5, the TACACS Plus server responds with the user's authorization level, specifying what commands and actions are allowed on the router. In step 6, the router forwards this response to the client and grants it access. Then in step 7, as you can see, the user can now access the router based on the authorization level provided by the TACACS Plus server. And as it's working on the router throughout the session, the router will send accounting data to the TACACS Plus server to log the user's activity and commands. So, we'll be using Cisco Packet Tracer to set up a simple lab with 2 layer 2 networks linked by a router, and this setup will help you see clearly how AAA functions under a controlled environment. So for this demo, let's switch to the lab. Okay, so here is our lab setup in Packet Tracer. We've got a single router labeled R1, as you can see, 2 switches, 2 client PCs, and 1 AAA server, all wired up for today's demo. Let's quickly check their IP addresses. So router R1 sits at 192.168.1.1. This is the default gateway. PC1 is at 192.168.1.10. AAA server is configured at 192.168.1.11. So I've already set up the TACACS service on my AAA server to recognize our router R1 as a client, and this setup includes a pre-shared key and user credentials for the authentication. Okay, now watch closely. I'm going to switch off the TACACS service, and then from PC1, I'm going to attempt a remote telnet connection to the router. Normally, you would use local router credentials. That's the default credentials on a router, on a Cisco router. But we are routing our authentication to the AAA server. Now, since the TACACS Plus service is off, these credentials will obviously fail. Now, let's turn it back on. And voila. So with the service back online, the AAA server now authenticates our login attempts from PC1 to R1 using the credentials we set up in advance on the AAA server. And just like that, we're in. We have successfully authenticated. It's a simple demo, but it shows the power of centralized authentication in a network environment. So, let's end the session with a few conclusions, just to summarize all the amazing benefits of AAA. As we've seen, the use of AAA services offers multiple advantages over local credential management. Firstly, it centralizes user management. It makes it much easier to control access to your network devices. It also enhances security by reducing the number of attack vectors. It does it by minimizing the opportunities for unauthorized access and misuse in 2 key ways. The first is centralization of strong authentication, and the second is more granular access control and monitoring. It also simplifies logging and tracking user activities across the entire network, and it fulfills an important cybersecurity principle called nonrepudiation. Nonrepudiation means ensuring that once a user performs an action, they cannot deny having done so. And this is crucial This is critical for maintaining security and accountability, especially in sensitive environments. It also helps with compliance by providing audit trails and monitoring, and it's obviously adding scalability, as it facilitates easier addition of new services to the network and the granting and revocation of rights and permissions. I guess that's a wrap for today's, and I sure hope you enjoyed. You have seen how TACACS Plus can help you achieve robust AAA security in your network. If you found this enlightening, entertaining, or you feel like your dog needs to watch this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share so you don't miss our next super nerdy episode. See you next time, guys, and don't forget, stay connected, stay secure. Thank you.